Hello, I hope you enjoyed the screening. I would like to welcome on stage Dessil Mekhtigian, the film director, and a round of applause, please. And also, it will be moderated by Kegham.
Test.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're glad to see many familiar faces. Right now, I don't see much, but first, I would like to express how honored, happy, and proud I am to be with Dessil, to be talking about her movie, and just on a personal mushy moment, Dessil, I consider Dessil as my artistic goddaughter. Sorry, Karim, but you know, we've been working together and doing all kinds of creative work together since she was 16, and now she's this amazing filmmaker with such a compelling film. So I just wanted to express that.
Thank you.
And Dessil, I would like to start our conversation by asking you about the context in which this film or its idea was conceived. Sort of like, I'm curious about the matrix within which this film was inspired.
The film, what inspired me at first was growing up with all these black and white photos. But what really triggered me was how they were photographing everything. It was almost compulsive. And I felt that without ever meeting my ancestors, I already knew or could imagine a lot about them. So I started this very long research, and I had all this material. And these negatives, they serve as a record. It's preserving a memory, and in this case, it's our collective memory. And in times where history is constantly erased or forgotten, the collective memory and how a group of people remember their past is important, and I wanted to capture that.
But yeah, I mean, in relation, just to bounce off what you're saying and the collective memory, and in relation to your film, obviously, why do you? What is the link, in your opinion, of Armenian hoods or Armenians and photography? It's true that not only in Egypt but beyond, even in Palestine, as you know, my grandfather, etc., in France, really everywhere, Armenians are pioneer photographers.
Yeah, it's true.
In relation to the collective memory that you speak about, why do you think photography was a vocation paired with Armenians?
There's theories, but we look at our past to be informed in a way, and their past was erased. So they were creating new memories from scratch. And it felt, when I was looking at these pictures, I felt like there was an urge to do that. And on the other hand, this work is mobile in the sense that they can take it and leave. When you've been forced to leave a country, when you've been forced to leave a place, there's a survival mode that happens, and you don't get too implemented or attached to places in case if you have to leave again. And they are very Armenians. This pattern and this movement around the world is very recurrent with the Armenians, and I think it became their second nature.
You actually refer to it in the film when Dada talks about their departing with their luggage in one hand and their camera in another, and just leaving.
Yeah.
Within what you just said, there is a very important sentence that comes in the film. Image is like a trace. If no one sees it, it does not exist. It has a dual contradictory forces. It either freezes us in time or shows us the way. For me, interpreting that, I feel it's very much connected to why somehow Armenians who had just, we're talking 1915, who had just survived a trauma, a genocide, disrupted history, disrupted memory. Why would there be an urge to document? And image is like a trace. If no one sees it, it does not exist. But in this moment as well, I feel like it's not the image, it's also the history and the memory to be.
Yeah. For minorities, maintaining a culture is through intermarriage, music, food, so they don't become a trace that is unseen.
Right.
It's almost out of fear of being erased. And for this young girl, this young woman who is extremely connected and haunted by her heritage, but rebelling against the traditions that are expected of her, she wants to question this heritage and understand it. The movie captures big parts of our conflict in our community. We grew up with this culture in our homes, and the only place we could express and grow that side of us was in the Armenian community. And at the same time, we're growing with this, there's this other very rich culture in us that is growing and fueling another layer of our identity, and sometimes a third. And this brings us in the very complex nature of diasporas, that you belong to a community, but that at the same time you belong to a whole. And
it's true. It's something very, very specific. I mean, you never say us, for instance, from Egypt. We never say, we're Armenians. We say we're Egyptian Armenians. And I think there is complete pride in both in this duality of identity. And it's very specific to diaspora. I mean,
once you know how to embrace them, it can be very, it can block you for a long time until it doesn't.
And I felt this conflict that you just mentioned. I felt, and I'm, throughout the film, there was a sensation of conflict. Subtle, discreet, but it's unsettling. And we don't really understand what is the conflict. Why is Azad disconflicted? I mean, where's the drama? And it's obviously an internal, a psychological drama and conflict. But could you articulate that a bit further?
Is she, when creating the character, I would always, every time I would ask the main questions, or I was stuck with a scene or with the character, I would always go back to me, to ask myself, is she torn apart or not? Is she capable? When you're not capable is when there's conflict, and it's explained through her being torn apart between two places, between her family and between her constructed reality, the one that she has out of Egypt, and then this other one, and it's uncertain. You have to go into a quest. You have to have courage to go into it. So also this is an introduction to a much longer format we're working on that develops the themes of photography and negatives mainly. So it's a work in progress as well, and there's still a lot to be developed more deeply.
Yeah. A very important motif, poetic and literal, that I detected through the film is the motif of departing. And this marked me a lot, because you see it, and I'm quoting some parts, when you said, Azad said, tifshu, photographers fleeing. And then when Dada said, دول ناس كل ما يروحوا حتى يتزقوا منها. To Alban departing from Egypt to Belgium into France, to Takohi who escapes but then who departs again. To Azad who departed from Cairo to go to Paris, and now she's in this conflict, quote unquote, and leaving Paris, leaving her partner. So there is this fleeing, I don't know, which is really, for me, it marked me a lot through the film. And I don't know if consciously or subconsciously you kind of inserted these motifs and analogies of escape or of departure or of departing, or did it really translate because it's the actual condition?
I think it was unconsciously, but it is the actual condition. And like I said, Armenians and minorities, people who have had, people who've been forced to leave, to escape, they don't get, your place is not in one place anymore, it's around the world. And so it's, and it's personal as well. I lived 10 years in Paris, and all of a sudden I had to leave. And sometimes maybe another time another place will call me. So I think it's in their second nature. When you don't really belong to one place, then there's nothing keeping you there. And also we have diasporas everywhere, and diasporas communities.
But do you really feel when you don't belong? Because I feel something about the Armenian diaspora is that they really belong. They
integrate, of course.
But beyond integrate, we integrated 100 years ago, for instance. But now we're like beyond. We're part, and we take pride of our hosting nation, and we belong. I mean, of course, it's a diasporan identity, so it's quite complex. It's third culture kids. But maybe, I guess trauma
it's not negative when I say
is inherited,
yes, it is. Trauma can last generations. But it's when I say don't belong, I don't mean it in a negative way.
Yeah.
You don't really belong to one place, and whether you have one nationality or two or three. So it's being open to.
Right. I forgot to say something actually. One about the motif of departing. The most important with what's his name, Serge, but what's his name in the film?
Fabio.
Fabio. Yeah, voilà. So he said, who can just drop everything and go live elsewhere? And then you answer, Azad answers, maybe Armenians do this. So I think, you say it's unconscious, but I think it's very,
some choices are very conscious, of course.
And then, which brings me to the point of colliding a fiction and factual or biographical, like documentary versus fiction, fiction versus reality, or the Azad's character versus Dessil. And it's obvious that there is a dimension of autobiography in there. But that autobiography, I'm wondering to what extent it is personal and to what extent it's a collective autobiography, meaning of an Armenian reality or an Armenian Egyptian reality or condition, the Armenian collective, basically.
Yeah, it's a mix.
Yeah.
Fiction gives me freedom to imagine. That's why I like this format. But I also like to blur the lines between fiction and reality. So did this really happen? Are they really related? It's intriguing for me to put that out there when I create a story. But of course, there's a very documentary side to the film. On one side, her research and the work that Armenian photographers did in Egypt years ago. And on the other hand, the story of the protagonist family, how they came to Egypt, their integration and life here. It's inspired by true events, and of course the fictional part is there so that I can imagine, so that I can add, remove, transform. But in the end, it is blurring reality and fiction.
Great. Of course, it adds dimension of poetics in there as well, in your medium of transmitting it. Freedom, and Isra, are you around? You let me know when we need to give it to the, to open up the Q&A, please. Okay. The title. We spoke a lot and argued a lot about the title. From the work of the devil, Na'amal al-Shaytan.
Oh.
Where, how? We see it in the film, but
No,
give me?
I'll develop. It is something that Muhammad Ali Basha said the first time he was photographed, but there's this belief in certain cultures and traditions that capturing images of people is like a theft of the soul. It comes from the idea that a person's essence is contained within their image, and so taking a photo of them would be like taking a piece of their soul. And so that's where, that's how it was interpreted. That's how Muhammad Ali Basha's saying was interpreted. For me, I wanted to change the narrative, and I wanted, for me, the devil here, when I used the word the devil, it evokes something like a creative force, the tendency of a true artist. It's a creative energy, and it's something that I would actually like to develop more in the feature film that I couldn't do here.
And yeah, I was just before opening up the discussions on the Q&A, I wanted to ask you about the work. Yeah. First of all, we know it's a work in progress. It's a short film that is left very open-ended, very poetically so, I believe, with this final scene being so strong. What is happening now? What is the long feature one? Where are you in the process?
So I won't say too much, but it continues the research where we focus more on the negatives and photography in Cairo, specifically in West al-Balad actually, because this is where most of the research and the filming was done. So it's actually very special that we're screening it here today. And yeah, so it focuses more on the negatives and the world of negatives and collectors here, as well as this meaning of and the title and the idea that your soul is contained within your image.
So you're taking that
I'm taking
theme
these
as
themes
well.
to make it
Really?
into
Okay.
yeah.
So the link to this current film will be almost not a sequel, but like
It will be and less focused maybe on the Armenian heritage, but more on photography.
Okay.
And of course, there's going to be lots of Armenian photographers in it because
it's fact.
Yeah.
Good.
And like your grandfather.
Yeah, well, he was in Gaza, but I mean, he did photograph a lot in Egypt because Gaza belonged to Egypt. He was not in downtown. No, their flat is still in downtown, actually, but his studio was
in Gaza.
In Gaza, yeah. But yeah, we'll engage in that for sure, and I look forward to seeing it. You know,
yes, you'll be here. That's right.
Yeah. So, can we open the platform for questions? Anyone?
First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for this amazing film. I really am very impressed.
Thank you.
And I mean, it brought to us the contribution of the Armenian community in Egypt, which is really fascinating, not only in photography, but in so many other fields. It's very good to be reminded of all that. My question is basically, how specific is the Armenian experience in Egypt as compared to other places? Is there anything specific about it, or is it the same when you encounter Armenian communities elsewhere?
I mean, every time you come across an Armenian, wherever you are, there is a sense of unity that happens. But the difference would be, I guess, the Egyptian culture that comes with them. But I mean, every time I've been surrounded by Armenians, I've felt this unity. So I wouldn't say that it's more specific. Yes, I grew up in it here. Armenian clubs, Armenian dance, Armenian basketball. So it's very much the people that I know, I've known since I'm a kid, and there's so many of them. So I'm closer to the community here, but the sense of unity, I experience it everywhere.
Thank you.
Good, good afternoon. I would like to add something to what the lady talked about. That is there something particular about Armenians, and especially in Egypt? I'm an Armenian myself, and I'm very proud of both heritages, Egyptian and Armenian. And I always stress that point. We Armenians, as history-wise, we owe a lot to Egypt, especially to Malik Farouk. There is a very touching story that there were a group of orphans who came from the genocide, and Farouk, in I think it's Port Said or Ismailia, he set them up in houses, not tents, not encampments, hot water, food, and I had a discussion with some, when there were all those boat people going to Europe and they couldn't accommodate. And I mentioned this history. So Armenians have a big debt, and that this country has opened its arms. Thank you.
It's true.
Thank you for a beautiful film. It really had lots of touching moments, you know. And I was just a little bit unsettled by the last part, where do we go? You know, the last sentence is, where do we go? And I felt that there were, it's like centripetal forces, because she chooses to come back, but then the statement is, it's not the last thing, you know?
I didn't mean in the sense of where do we go as a country, where else do we go? I meant as they left us this heritage, the Armenian photographers, what do we do with it?
Ah, okay. Because
it's
I
more in the sense of where do we...
Yes, she comes back, but then she's leaving again. So
for now, she's not.
All right. Yeah, I would like, you know, I was also a little bit, this is an impression, not a question, but that we're pushed out, not necessarily. I mean, it's like Rafi said.
Egyptians, you mean?
Egyptian Armenians, at least, were always part and parcel and very welcome and loved and liked and everything. So, I mean, this idea of, even Egyptians, they leave, huh? They go to France, they go to everywhere else, but they're pushed by whatever pushes everyone else, but not as
a person,
not as
to them.
not a subculture, not as a minority, which is part and parcel of it. But thank you. I liked a lot of the scenes. Just the last thing, because did you feel that you're mirroring the grandmother who left?
Yes, definitely.
To go back to her brother.
Yes.
To maintain her
length. And so she leaves and goes. Yes, it's done on
beautiful.
purpose.
And I like the moment where she's butting heads with the guy who likes her in the when they're playing football. The very nice shot. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to say something, because I don't about that, or being forced to leave, because I think forced migrated is something, and the urge to depart is something else. Armenians were never, in Egypt, at least in the history of Egypt, were never prosecuted or forced out. They were integrated since even the Fatimid time. So I guess when we were talking about leaving and the Armenian Tifshu, we're talking about this urging feel of I need to depart, and this unsettlement inside, this anguish to continue being a nomad because of a trauma that we just talked about, a trauma that is khalas, instinctive, it's there, it's in the DNA, it's not yet healed. So it's not force migrated in that sense, or prosecuted. Well, yeah, we were prosecuted indeed, no longer, I hope. Well, we're still in conflict very much with Azerbaijan, but let's not talk about that, and Turkey, but again, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about her film.
Hi, Azad. In the movie, the script, it's written in English, French, Arabic, Armenian. That's a very difficult part in the movie. How did you come out with it?
Naturally. I didn't want to choose a language because when we started writing, we were like, okay, in what language are we writing? And it was my day-to-day life. I get out of the house, I wake up in the morning, I speak in Armenian, and then I switch to French, and then I go down, I speak in Arabic, and then I speak in English. And maybe it was too much, but I decided to consciously this time keep it as like that. It wasn't very hard we were just writing, huh? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's how we speak, really, yeah? That's how it's true that it's maybe it's a bit difficult to be read for a wider public, but when I think about it, it's very sincere from you. If I look at ourselves, especially that you only had actors who are from our community, our friends, etc. But that's really how we speak, whether we're in Paris or in Cairo. English, French, Arabic. If there are Armenians, then Armenian is in it as well. So that's very true to the complexity and messed up reality of language and identity.
Okay, I would like to thank you, Dessil, for this great production. And as an Egyptian Armenian, I would like to ask you about a specific scene in the film when Azad, the lady Azad, went to tell her parents that she's leaving. The kind of conversation that took place with the father and mother, especially the mother, the question is, did you mean that conversation? I mean, is it the Egyptian and Armenian culture?
Yes.
A kind of conversation that takes place in the Middle East. I don't think this kind of conversation takes place
maybe
in the West.
I don't want to generalize, but it's something that maybe not with me, but that I've seen a lot with friends and with their parents.
Yes,
and
because it happens.
Yes.
It's something like
yes.
I felt it meant and it's good.
Yeah, I mean it's good.
It's good as we all had that kind of conversation with our
of course,
parents.
Because,
so
like I was saying, the way that minorities like to maintain a culture is through sometimes intermarriage, and so this is something that always comes back when someone is not marrying an Armenian or is looking to see someone else. There's this conflict always between the parents. Again, I don't want to generalize, but I've seen it a lot. So yeah. I was just yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So, your choice in the film of the gallery, where you were meant to have your photo exhibition, it did look very ominous. The lighting, it was very brutalist, very, yeah. And there were two references in the movie. One who said, well, Serge, again Serge, her boyfriend, who said, c'est comme un tombeau, it's like a tomb. And then Dada, who says, Ida, you know, like he goes like, what the hell is that? Why artistically, or at least, you know, cinematically, did you choose to have this gallery specifically with this ominous light, with even these comments in there. Again, is that just an aesthetic choice, or is it within the narrative?
When we started, when I was in my research and as I was writing, there were two feelings that were with me the whole time. One was a pride of the work that Armenian photographers had done, and that I wanted to speak about that, and I was very passionate about it. And second, mourning, this sense of it's in the past, it doesn't exist anymore, they're dead. Yeah, this mourning, this feeling of mourning. And so this underground space, which is a bit cold and it's stones, and it gives you this feeling of tomb, and so of sanctuary, someplace a bit different from outside, and yeah, and it's not in the normal context. So yeah, I used it specifically for that. Hello.
Any other? Okay, there's one question up there.
Hi. I just have something to say about the idea of the creative force you had mentioned, about min amal al-shaytan, and also about what Kegham mentioned about you said something about how the trauma would heal itself. So I feel like this is extremely interesting, because the trauma is seen as negative, but then the creative force that comes with the trauma, so how does it really heal itself? So do Armenians actually root easily anywhere? And is it about the collective, and how they actually dig roots all over the world, and how this is so powerful, and how they actually work very hard to recreate memories. So it's about the memory, and it's about recreating the memories, and how this is so powerful. So I believe like this is interesting to shed this light.
Yeah, it was from trauma always comes a creative force. It's true, and whether it heals it or not, it heals a part, a layer, and then you have something else that you need to heal. I don't know if they were working as a collective consciously, because I say it at some point that they weren't friends, but each their own created. In the end, we as from outside we see it that it was a pack, but in fact they were on their own, each of them. And in the end, yeah, because they are Armenians, so it becomes a collective. And then this is how history goes on.
Exactly, but I feel like it's also so powerful. Like it's very traumatic, it's very, it's a trauma, but then it's also so powerful, and there's a creative force that comes with this.
Yeah, it's good to use trauma to do something very creative.
And it's very innate, so it happens naturally. So it's embedded, it's rooted, and Armenians root easily, they become part of every culture, and they have their impact, and they grow fast.
Yes, it's true.
So
they learn fast, they grow fast.
Yeah.
Because there's a sense of community.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dessil. Thank you, everyone. And feel free to engage with Dessil outside. Thank you, Isra. Where are you? Surah.